Good afternoon, everyone. So, last week I was out of town, and today I want to get back to it. I really didn't have a lot of time to set up a video for this week. So, what we're going to be doing is just sort of working on stuff around here. And today I'm actually working on some gauge clusters from a later 944. And one of the problems with these is that at night you can't really see the gauges. So I'm going to be going in and fixing a few of these because they all have this problem. So to start out here, I spend a lot of time just fixing the gauges around here. So I've got probably 50 of them pulled apart right now, using them for spares and parts and whatnot. So here's what I'm looking for. So as you can see, I'm going to be explaining how all this works and how the light gets to the gauges. So, but basically, they had the technology to, let's see here, actually shine the light through the gauges back then, but the way they do modern cars. But they did not allow it to illuminate like that. They could have cut these slots out and made this all light up, and that would make things a lot better. But that isn't the way they did it. Instead, it's illuminated from the front. So basically, the light bulbs are in here, and then the light travels through this plastic and is reflected onto the face of the gauges. So as you can see, you kind of want these reflective here, so that way the light will stay in there. Otherwise, you'll see the light bulbs here just shining up underneath the dash. So this is one of the problems that we have to fix, is that we have to sand this sort of paint off here and get them clear. And then we have to put a foil back on there. You can use paint, but I find that foil works a lot better. So once all that is cleaned up, so that's about what it looks like originally. Sometimes they look worse than that. I think I got another one here that looks really bad. Yeah, this one looks worse. It's very rare that you find these in good shape, but once you've got it sanded down, you're going to have something like that that's clear. We can, of course, polish it and make it perfectly clear, but there's not really any point to it. You just want it nice and smooth, because if it's crinkled, then it's going to disperse the light away from where you're trying to send it, and you're trying to get it to go up here. And you can see this is dirty, but we also have polish here. So before we put this back together, we'll clean it up and we'll use some polish to make this look new. But yeah, basically we're trying to go from this to this, and then we're going to be using, like I said, foil tape seems to work better. I have used the reflective aluminum tape before, the reflective paint, and doesn't really work. It works fine, but it doesn't really transfer. Like you would think that it's going to look like the foil when you paint that reflective tape on there, but it hardly ever does. It ends up looking flat almost. I don't know if it's just because the bond between the plastic or what, but anyway, guys, yeah. So today we're going to be sanding that down, and I've got some 400 grit sandpaper here. You just tear off some, and if you keep the paper wet, then it won't gum up a whole lot, and it'll make it a little bit easier to sand, because after you do a few passes on it, it's going to gum up, and then you're going to need a new piece of sandpaper, or you can just keep it wet. I'll leave this water over here, and then just keep it wet, but you don't want stuff getting in there too, so you kind of want to be careful. But you can see I've scratched it just a little bit, and it already looks a lot better. But that's not the only thing we're going to be talking about. We're going to be talking about the bulbs. Now, there are two different types of bulbs that would originally came in these, and I actually had an example in my hand. I don't know how to do it, but you can see the bulbs here, and I actually had one pulled out. I can just pull another one out, but many times people will change these and they won't notice that there is a difference between the bulbs. I believe there's a 3-watt bulb and there's a 5-watt bulb. Of course, you want the 5-watt because it's going to be a little bit brighter. Of course, nowadays we have LEDs, and that's what we're going to be putting in here. Now, you can see that this cluster here also has LEDs for all the backlights, but you don't really have to worry about any of that. What you really want to do is just change these bulbs down here to LEDs, and they're already swapped over like these. So once I get these sanded clear, we'll put the foil on there. And this cluster here, you can see this is where I took the LED out of. Turn it around. So we have the LEDs in here. I've also got to replace the odometer gear in this one and get it back together. But I've already got these sanded clear. So once we sand the other one up and it looks like this, then we'll take our foil tape here and we'll apply it. And then we'll have the LED bulbs in, and that'll be it. You'll have some really bright lights. So how's everybody's morning going? That's great to hear from you, JT. He says he's having fun resealing his gas tank and redoing all the gaskets. He's doing the gaskets on his trans while it's out. He's also glad he did new bulbs in my 84 cluster. Yeah, with the 84 and earlier, well, the earlier cars in general, you can just put LEDs in there and they're a whole lot brighter. But it's usually the later cars, they'll get so bad that you can't even see the gauges at all at night. You don't really have that problem with the earlier cars, which is it's a funny thing because all the improvements they made to the gauges. But that wasn't one of them. Like I said, they should have just done it the way they did the lights, where it just shines through like modern cars have. I mean, they clearly had the ability to do it. No, they didn't do it. I don't know. But this here is the foil tape. And if you buy it at Lowe's, it's where all the tape is. But if you go to Home Depot, it's usually over where the dryer ducting is. So it's not cheap, but it is some pretty cool stuff. And I like to use it for a lot of different things. But yeah, so basically we'll take this, and you can see even on the inside, it's very reflective. And it's always a little more reflective than if you put reflective paint on it. I don't know if that's just the way it lays on the plastic, but you could paint metal with that paint and it'll look nice and shiny. But as soon as you paint plastic with it, it seems to just go dull, and I haven't had any luck with it. I mean, there might be one out there, but I just use the foil nowadays. So yeah, let me get back to this. Like I said, we're just going to go ahead and keep sanding this. It doesn't really take too long. As you can see, a lot of this stuff just comes off with your fingernail at this age. But basically, this was just painted on there. And you'll not want to get water in these crevices and stuff, so I just kind of hold it like that. But yeah, it doesn't take very long. Probably do this in about 5 minutes. So has anybody else had any problems seeing their gauges at night? This is just something that I had to do today, and I really wanted to put together a video for us to watch, but I got back late in the week, a lot later than I thought I would be, and I was just tired. I was like, you know what? I'll just come up with something on the spot. So here we are. This is a lot of things that people have asked me about doing, and I actually wanted to do a video on it in the past, but I filmed everything, and I just never had time to edit it. So it's a great time to do it now. But you can see just that little bit of time, I've already got one pretty much done. I'm going to wipe it off so you guys can see it a little bit better. But yeah, it's about that quick. Doesn't take very long at all. And then once I clean this one up and put the foil on it, it's ready to go back in the car. I've already done the odometer gear and everything on it. And you can see it already has all new LEDs. We're just going to make sure that it's as bright as it can be. Gareth wrote, thanks again for all your videos and the time you take to help the community. I did this with some LEDs a while ago. It made a big difference. Yeah, awesome. It absolutely does. I don't really like the color of the LEDs, but and I don't really think they look good when they're coming through the gauge like that. But on this, you pretty much got to have LEDs or you'll never see the gauges, even with the brighter 5-watt bulbs or whatever. It's just really dull. And I'm not in love with the LED coloring just being stark white, but it actually looks pretty good if you do this on these cars, on the later ones anyway. I've got some LED bulbs in one of my early cars, and it's really bright and it looks good, but it doesn't really have that original look to it. You can clearly tell it's LED. So I'm not a big fan of it on the early cars, and I'm not a big fan of it right here. So someone had already done this one before, so we're not going to do it on that, but we are going to put the LEDs along the lighted portion because it works so well. But yeah, it's definitely an upgrade worth doing. JT wrote, I just bought a replacement oil gauge, but when I do a key to power on, not the engine, it would just got a 5-bar. No, that is not normal. That's usually a wire that's messed up somewhere. So if you just replace the gauge now, I would have to know what the gauge was doing before that. So did you replace the gauge because it was doing that before, or did the gauge not work before and so this is all new to you? But what usually happens is I was looking at a message, but so it should always be at 0 or 1, whatever. Let me look. Yeah, there's a 0 on this, so it should be at 0 when you turn the key on. And usually what happens is the wires are swapped around on the gauge. So you want the blue wire with the white stripe to be on the G, and then the solid blue wire to be on the WK. And that should straighten everything out, unless the sender is just bad. Sometimes the sender is just bad. Here it said, at the same time, I plucked up the courage to remove the front glass and cleaned it up, which helped as well. Had to use some razor blades and careful. Yeah, yeah, we also do that. It's easy to crack the covers on these, and anytime you do glue them back on, just make sure you use model glue. So I had to remove this one, and I polished it. So that's already back together, and then I'll let it dry for a few days with Tester's model glue. But yeah, it makes a big difference. Hi, Andreas. I'm going to try and get this done today, and then once I get it finished up, then we'll go see how bright it is. I've probably got about 25 gauges. I spend a lot of time just fixing gauges. So that's two now, two of the three. So you can see how it did look. And these are the two that I have done now. So it was going to 5 bar the whole time. Idle tested it without dipping. So the old gauge was still going the 5 bar as well, even without turning the engine on. Then yeah, it's definitely a sender issue or a wiring issue. If the wiring is even grounded wrong, I think that if you disconnect the wires, it'll do that. So either something's not plugged in, the sender's bad, or the wires are swapped around on the sender. But yeah, I'll let you guys see. Let me turn this. Actually, see what I'm doing here. I just want to get all that old stuff off there, because we're going to put shinier stuff on it, make it better. Will asked, is there a similar process for the square gauges? Actually, no, it's much easier. You just pull the lights out and put some LEDs in there, and you're done. It's maybe a little harder to pull the early gauges out. I don't know. It's about the same. You can probably pull them out without even removing the steering wheel, but probably be easier to do so. Usually when I'm doing all this, so people ask me like, hey, is this easier or that? But a lot of the times we already have the cars half apart. So we're doing stuff while we're in there. It's very rare that I'm going in after, just to do the bulbs. It's oftentimes we're already doing this because we've got to fix the odometer gears or something. But on the early cars, you just take the gauges out, put some LEDs in there. I want to say that 944 online has those too. This is where we got these LEDs here. You can see I'm already done. What I'm going to do is that I don't think it matters whether these are hazy or not, but you probably want to get them as clear as possible so the light will hit that reflective material and pass it on. I mean, if I was going to go all out on this, and I've considered it before, let's see. Basically, let's see. Is this the one I had? No, I need this here. Okay. And see the light hits this white there, but it's actually this clear part that's obscured by this. And I would love to put like something reflective in there to make sure that it all goes to the clear part that transfers the light to the front. So maybe one day you guys can try that and let me know what you think. The LEDs, of course, they don't spread out light quite like a regular bulb. So most of it's just hitting this white painted plastic. Basically, it's all just one piece of plastic that they painted white. You can see the overspray on it from the factory, and that's how it worked. And then the light gets collected here and goes through that and gets reflected to the front. But with an LED, you probably get some foil and just sort of figure out a way to make it just focus more of that light down in there. But it's probably overkill. But something I have thought about. But anyway, as long as you have this cleaned up pretty good, I mean, you're going to have a lot brighter lights. And like I said, you can keep the original bulbs, but just make sure that when you go to replace them that you want to go to the 5-watt instead of I think there's a 3 and a 5. So, all right. So this is cleaned up and ready for the foil tape now. I just want to make sure that I wipe it down really good. Because if there's any of that stuff still on there, then it's not going to let it adhere correctly and it's going to look messy. So yeah. So now we have, you can see that someone's already done that. I didn't do this one, but that's basically, yeah, someone had the right idea. Now what'd be interesting is that they sand that off before they did it. Yeah, they did. So they didn't use a high quality foil tape. That's why it doesn't look as good. But yeah, somebody already had the idea to do this long before I did. But so basically we've taken that one right there from this to this. And now you should get plenty of light on the front of your gauges. Let me read some comments right quick. JT said, then when I took it around the corner, the pump died. So I guess the rust shifted in the tank and killed my pump. So that's why I'm resealing. Oh, man. Yeah, those old tanks, they get rusty sometimes. If you've ever seen that video on one of the red 944's that we worked on, the guy was like, yeah, the previous owner said he drove it a lot, and we got in there and the tank was just absolutely packed with rust. Just packed with rust. I mean, you couldn't take in buckets of rust and put more rust in there. It's like this car has not driven in a very long time. And so we ended up having to replace the whole tank. But that was crazy. And then the wires were cut to the pump. So I'm like, how was it running when there's not even wiring to the pump? People do some strange stuff. With the cluster in hand, is it possible to please quick overview of the areas of corrosion interference with proper functionality? Are you talking about the like right here on the ribbon? So I have seen corrosion there, actually. I didn't bring it over here, but like I said, I have about 25 of these clusters. Give me 1 second. I'll go grab one. And hopefully you guys can still hear me. So yeah, I didn't bring this one over earlier. Didn't expect anybody to ask me a question. So this cluster here, was it this cluster? Anyway, a cluster like this. I had one just like this, and this one will work for it. It was in perfect condition. It didn't even have any like fading on the needles, and we ended up taking the needles off because they were so perfect. But I've seen this several times. Hopefully you guys can see that on camera. There's just nothing left of these connectors here. Oh, especially on this side here. Look. So we have to replace these ribbons sometimes. So it requires removing this whole plastic piece here. But if I can turn it like that, look, I can just pull these up and out. Just completely missing. So this does happen, and the only thing you can do at that point is put a whole nother cluster in there. It's not that common out of like all the ones that I have. You can see this one here. I'm not going to be using this for anything, but it's still perfectly intact. But it does happen. I've seen it a couple of times, but for the most part, like, it's not very common. JT said mirror paint. Yes, you can use mirror paint, and actually I have used mirror paint on this before, but the problem that I had with it was that once it dried, and I mentioned if you spray it on metal or something, it'll look like a mirror, but as soon as you put it on plastic, it just sort of kind of looks dull. And so I find that the aluminum tape is a little more reflective than doing that. Like, I put some the mirror paint on there a couple of times, and it just looks like flat silver paint. That was not going to work for me, so decided to go with the foil for now on. So when we replaced the tank, what we did in that video where it was packed with rust, we took another tank that was in pretty good shape, cleaned it out, and then we put a plastic coating in there. So we relined it and then put it back in. So ethanol will never make that rust again unless the tank liner falls out. But tank liner is like a plastic that can hold up to it. And of course, you could put a newer plastic tank in there, but it's a lot of effort. You have to pull the clips and the mounts off a donor car and grind them out and weld them in. It's kind of no problem. Hope you guys enjoyed it. So yeah, that's the difference between a bad board and a good board. So yeah, nothing you can do that. So if this was a good, let's say if the gauges were good in this one that has bad plastic, we'd either try and transfer this plastic ribbon over or just swap everything into this chassis. It just makes more sense to just put everything in there, call it a day, or just replace the whole thing altogether. Just go on eBay and buy another one. So yeah, now we are to the point where we're going to put some full tape on here. Let me grab, I could probably do it with my finger, and that's what I was intending to do, but just in case I need to, let me grab a razor. All right. So this is what I was talking about. I said you didn't want to get water down in there, and then I did, but that's okay. You can just reach in there and wipe it off. But I'll take some of my full tape. Now there's different sizes. I went ahead with the biggest size full tape because I didn't want to do sections of it. I just wanted to and it really sticks. So I was going to try and show you guys, but it just immediately stuck. So, okay. Turn this a little bit more. Yeah, use some high quality foil tape and it'll be better than what the factory did with their paint. Look how good that looks. Yeah, it's got a little wrinkles in it because I wasn't expecting it to stick. I was going to try and line it up a little bit more, and then it just suddenly grabbed it, and it grabbed it good too, so it's fine. You can leave it. And you can see that the edges here also allow light to escape, so if you want to go over those, the sides rather. Nicholas asked, are these? Yes, you can go back and watch all my live videos. They should show up in my feed, but you may have to go over to live. There's a tab at the top. You just click over and you'll see that everything's on the channel. So yeah, you can go back and watch all those videos. I've got a 944 Fest video up. I've got a few other things. We get back to doing more of that, but we're just trying different stuff. We're just hanging out and having fun, man. So this was all stuff I needed to do today. I kind of got back late into town this week and didn't have time to prep anything, but was going to spend the day doing this anyway, so might as well show other people how we do it. It's one of those things no one will ever see, but doesn't mean that you shouldn't do it well, you know. But you can see just how reflective that is. So yeah, you can paint it, but you got to mask everything off. Just put some foil tape on it. It is really stuck to this too, so foil tape works great if you get a high quality foil tape. Oh yeah, well, you haven't missed anything. Basically, if you just joined in, I just showed that this is what we started off with. Well, not that one. I'm going to put that on the side. So basically, we started off with something like this. Then we used 400 grit sandpaper to sand it all off, using wet sandpaper at that. And that took a few seconds. And then we just used some aluminum foil tape. And like I mentioned, if you're in Lowe's, it's where all the tape is. But if you go to Home Depot, it's over where the duct, especially, I think I got this over where the dryer duct stuff is. You know, why they, I mean, it's great they do that so you don't have to go to the side of the store, I guess. But at the same time, it's like just put it where all the tape is too and help. But anyway, I found it. And there you go. One's done. There's like a little edge here. Like I said, you kind of want to make it look good if you are already in there. That little edge there. There you go. There you go. Much easier than trying to paint. You can see just how reflective that is. It's going to look good. Now I'm just going to grab even more tape. And we'll do this next one. Yeah, see, this one came out a little bit less wrinkly because I was prepared. There you go. I mean, honestly, you can just leave it like that. It's not really all that important. But I'll clean it up, make it look a little bit better. So what's everybody doing this Sunday afternoon? There you go. Like I said, you could just do this and you're done, but I'll make it look kind of like that. I don't know that this looks better than this because the way you got to cut it and everything is kind of, hey, whatever. What did I do with my razor? There we go. Josh said trying to figure out the temp gauge not working as well as the right cluster lights. So is this an early car or a later car? So a sensor didn't do it. What year is your car? '83. Okay. So, a lot of time there could be a couple of things going on. '83, like something I commonly see. I'll move this up, but you can see how this is coming along. Something that I commonly see on early cars is that someone will have a short, and it's the first thing I check, especially if the sensor seems to be working, and you replaced it, so it's probably not going to be the sensor at this point. But when you pull the gauge out, check that someone hasn't globbed a bunch of dielectric grease down in there, because lots of people think that dielectric grease improves the connection, but it's actually there to prevent moisture from getting in the connection. And so when they put it down in there, it's very hard to get that stuff out of there, and it actually make their problem much worse. So many times I get a car in here and the gauge isn't working. It's because pull it out, and there'll be sometimes there's corrosion in there and nobody's done anything, but a lot more times I'll see dielectric grease packed down in there. And so check that, check for corrosion on the back of it. And I've even seen it where just the gauge just doesn't work anymore. So might require going in and like cleaning some grounds up on the inside of it. But in that case, if you check the wiring, obviously you put a new sender in there and that doesn't work, then I would just look at trying another gauge in there. Maybe you can just find one on eBay cheap and just pop it in there, and that might be all your problems, of course. there's always people like me that can fix the gauge for you, take it apart, but you can do it if you're kind of handy. So, I mean, owning these cars kind of means you got to be kind of handy. So, if it's something you want to look at, it may be internal to the gauge, but the easiest thing to check is just for corrosion on the back of the plugs and clean out any dielectric grease that might be in there. I actually had one not long ago. They had packed it full of dielectric grease. Nothing worked. Henry writes, any idea of why my tachometer doesn't work for the first 5 to 15 minutes of driving? I am going to, what was that thing that Johnny Carson used to do where he could like tell the future? He would hold something to his head and he would give the answer, and then he'd open it up, would be the question. I'm going to guess you've got a 1984 944. So, Henry, do you drive an 84? '86. Okay. So I was off. No, it's a more common problem on like the 83, 84 cars. You rarely see any problems with tachometers in the later cars, but it happens. I mean, I wouldn't say it doesn't happen. It does happen. But the 84 cars, there's just a lot of them, and they are notorious for tachometers not working. When you get into like the 85 and a half, well, the 85-1 cars that still had the 84 tachometer, and the 87 and 88 924's that had essentially the same thing. You never see those go out, but the 84's. So with an 86, I've seen them go out. I don't know, I'm coughing, but in that case, you're probably just better off like finding another used one and popping it in there, but or sending it to someone. It's just cheaper to find another one. Once they go, there's not a lot you can do to them. It's just like that with the 84s. You could send them to somebody and have them rebuild it, or you can just buy another one cheap. With the 84s, I would pretty much say, but let me hold on a second. Another thing you might want to check on your 86. No, I was going to say something, but no, that wouldn't be it. Usually when they go out, it's just, there's not a lot you can do for them. It's the same way with the early ones. You just either get them fixed or it's just cheaper to find another one. But with the 84s, like I was going to say, the next one might break. So, you're probably better off sending it to someone that'll change the caps and everything in it. But yeah, this is how this turned out. You can see that foil is very reflective. So we're going to be getting all the light that we can to it. These are all swapped over to LEDs. Now I've just got one more to tape up, and I'm going to see how I can do this. But we might be able to put this in a car. I might just do the other one later. This is what you guys want to see, because as soon as I do this, I can put the interior back together on this car. So this car will be done. Yeah, with the let's see if I've got one laying around here. I didn't bring it over because I didn't want to bring like every single piece of mess that I have in here over. I've got them up on a shelf, all torn apart. But let me grab a tachometer. But yeah, there's all sorts of diodes, resistors, and especially these caps that go out over time. You just have to send it to somebody to have it rebuilt. There's not a lot you can do. I don't even try and rebuild these things. If I was trying to rebuild it, I could, but I would never get anything done. So I just send them off. There's a place called Hollywood Speedo, and they handle that stuff there. Like little stuff where I'm changing the bulbs, and you see this took like 15 minutes. So I don't mind doing that. But when it gets into rebuilding all that stuff and testing it out, it's not worth time for me. But yeah, I would definitely with the later tachometers and stuff, just find a junk one and throw it in there. Well, one that's in a parts car or something, and you'll probably never have another problem at it. I don't see a lot of problems with those tachometers. I probably swapped out maybe 2 ever, but the 84's, all of them just don't work anymore. You tap them and they'll work a little while, and then they'll go back to not working again. Yeah, I think you'll be in good shape there. So, I mean, it could be something out, but it could be the ribbon cable, it could be all this other stuff. But I mean, most of the time, it's not. It's just tachometer itself. Okay, so I don't know how I'm going to do this while bringing you guys with me, but I guess what I could do is go install it in the car, and then I'll just come back and pick you guys up, and you guys can see it. The battery's already hooked up in the car and everything. So there's the car. That is the subject. And I'm just going to hook it up right quick. We'll see how bright it is. Also, something I should probably say here. So let me come back over here. All right. So something I should say is that, of course, when you're working with old incandescent bulbs that were in here, you can just put them in any way that you want. The LEDs have to be put in with the positive and negative exactly right in order to work. So I may plug this in and find out I have to turn the bulbs 90 degrees and get them to work right. So anyway, so let me check that they will work. It's going to take some finagling. Okay. I got them all in there correctly, and they're all lit up. The only problem I have is it's too bright in the shop to really notice anything. So let's turn the lights off. We'll get in and see what it looks like. Oh yeah. Yeah. With the lights on, it you couldn't even tell they were on. But now, oh yeah. All right, guys. Look at that. Don't know you can tell it in real life. On camera, but in real life, they're very bright. Stop this door chime. Okay, I was going to turn the thing off, but was not able to. Anyway, guys, that's how you make your interior lights brighter on your late 944. And I just got to finish up that other one. And then that's it for today. There's another project that I'm working on that car before I can do that. But I can now consider that car done because that was the last thing I needed to do. So anyway, guys, I hope you were entertained and had fun while I was doing this. And let me know what else I can come up with to show you guys on the live stream sometime. But I think that's just about going to do it for today. So yeah, hopefully you guys enjoyed it. Getting ready to do this one, clean it up, and then we will be done with the gauges for today. So anyway, guys, someone had asked earlier if you could watch the live streams from the start, and you can just go over to my channel. It may be in the live tab, but everything should be where you can find it. And also, you know, I want to thank everybody who supports us on Patreon, and there's a ton of stuff over there. If you guys are ever interested, there's a ton of videos you've never seen before. And we'll probably, if you know, can't come up with something, we'll take some videos from there, and then maybe we'll live stream them and add some context. There's a bunch of stuff that I kind of want to do with these live streams. I want to kind of keep them going every week because I think I'm able to reach more people with them. But anyway, guys, hope you enjoyed it. Go check out some videos on Patreon. Go back and watch some of the live stream videos from weeks past. And again, I hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll see you next week.